Welcome to another chapter of her journey, where we explore the depths of what happens when love is betrayed and family bonds are shattered. Don't just listen and leave. Hit subscribe so you'll never miss another story that speaks to your soul. Tonight's tale will show you that sometimes the quietest revenge cuts the deepest, and that a grandmother's love can be both protective and destructive. This is Martha's story, and trust me, you won't see the ending coming. My name is Martha Benjamin, and at 57, I thought I'd seen every possible way a family could break your heart. I was wrong. The cruelest betrayals, I learned, come wrapped in casual indifference, delivered with a smile, and justified with selfishness, so pure it takes your breath away. It was a Tuesday morning in June when the call came. I was in my garden, deadheading roses and enjoying the early summer warmth, when my phone buzzed with my daughter's name. Julie. The sight of it still made me smile then, still filled me with that automatic maternal joy that 34 years of motherhood had hardwired into my heart. "Hi, sweetheart," I answered, pulling off my gardening gloves. "How are you?"
Mom.
Perfect timing. Julie's voice carried that bright, artificial cheer she used when she wanted something. I should have recognized it immediately, but love makes us deaf to warning signs we'd catch in strangers. "I have the most amazing news." "Oh, what's that?" "Brad and I are going on a cruise. Can you believe it? 2 whole weeks in the Caribbean. We leave tomorrow morning." My first thought was happiness for her. Julie had been struggling lately, financially, emotionally in her marriage. A vacation might be exactly what she and Brad needed to reconnect and recharge. "That's wonderful, honey. How did you manage to get the time off work?" "Oh, you know how it is. Sometimes you just have to prioritize your mental health, right? We've been so stressed lately, and Dr. Peterson said we really need to focus on our relationship if we want to save our marriage." Dr. Peterson was their marriage counselor, a woman whose fees I'd been helping them pay for the past 6 months. The irony of using therapy advice to justify abandoning responsibility would become clearer to me later. "Well, I think it's great that you're taking care of yourselves," I said, genuinely meaning it. "What about Emma? Is she excited about having the house to herself for a bit?" There was a pause, a tiny hesitation that should have warned me, but I was still operating from a place of trust and love, still believing that my daughter was the responsible mother I'd raised her to be. "Oh, you know Emma. She's just happy to have her routine." Another pause. "Actually, Mom, that's kind of why I'm calling. You don't mind checking on her while we're gone, right? Just, making sure she's okay?" My granddaughter Emma was 17 years old and had been born with cerebral palsy that affected her mobility and speech. She was one of the brightest, sweetest souls I'd ever known, but she required constant care and supervision. The idea of her being alone for 2 weeks was absurd. "Checking on her?" I repeated slowly. "Julie, what exactly are you asking me?" "Just, stopping by every day or two. Making sure she has what she needs. She's pretty independent now, and it's only 2 weeks." The words hit me like cold water. "Julie, are you telling me you're leaving Emma alone? For 2 weeks?" "Mom, don't be dramatic. She's 17, not 7. And like I said, you'll check on her. She'll be fine." "She'll be fine?" My voice was climbing despite my efforts to stay calm. "Julie, Emma can barely prepare her own meals. She has seizures. She needs help with her medications." "What were you thinking?" "I was thinking that Brad and I are about to get divorced if we don't fix our marriage, and sometimes that has to take priority. Emma will understand. She always does." The casual cruelty of it stole my breath. Emma will understand. As if my granddaughter's disability made her less deserving of care, as if her sweet, accepting nature was something to be exploited rather than protected. "Julie. Look, Mom, I have to go. We're leaving super early tomorrow to catch her flight. The cruise sails at noon. Thanks for understanding, and thanks for looking after Emma. You're the best." The line went dead before I could respond. I stood in my garden for a long time after that call, holding my phone and trying to process what I'd just heard. My daughter, the little girl I'd rocked through nightmares, whose scraped knees I'd kissed, whose college tuition I'd helped pay, had just casually informed me that she was abandoning her disabled daughter for 2 weeks and expected me to pick up the pieces. The thing about betrayal is that you don't feel it in your chest first. You feel it in your stomach, like a stone you can't swallow, like poison working its way through your system. I felt that stone settle heavy and cold as I realized this wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment or a crisis decision made under stress. This was planned, calculated. Julie had booked a cruise, arranged time off work, packed bags, and made travel plans, all without once considering the impact on Emma. She'd simply assumed I would handle it, the way I'd handled so many things throughout her life. I drove to Julie's house immediately, my hands gripping the steering wheel as questions churned through my mind.
Surely misunderstood.
Surely, when I arrived, I'd find that Julie had arranged proper care for Emma, that my fears were unfounded. The house was in its usual state of barely controlled chaos when I let myself in with my emergency key. Dishes in the sink, laundry piled on chairs, mail scattered across the kitchen counter. But what struck me most was the silence. No sound of television, no music, no voices. Just silence. "Emma?" I called out. "Sweetheart, it's Grandma." I found her in her bedroom, lying on her bed and staring at the ceiling. Her beautiful face, so like Julie's had been at that age, brightened when she saw me. But there was something in her eyes that made my heart ache. A resignation that no 17-year-old should carry. "Grandma." Her speech was slurred but clear to my ears, trained by years of loving conversation. "Mommy said you might come." I sat on the edge of her bed and took her hand. "Did Mommy tell you about her trip?" Emma nodded, her expression growing clouded. She said she and Daddy need time to be happy. She said I would be okay here. "How do you feel about that, baby?" Emma's eyes filled with tears, and she struggled to form the words that came so easily to her mind but so difficultly to her tongue. "Scared," she finally whispered. "But Mommy said I can't be scared. Said I have to be big girl." The stone in my stomach grew heavier. "Oh, sweetheart. Grandma? Am I too much trouble? Is that why Mommy needs break?" The question broke something fundamental inside me. This beautiful, innocent child thought she was the problem. Thought her existence, her needs, her very being was such a burden that her parents needed to escape from her. "No, baby," I said firmly, smoothing her dark hair back from her face. "You are not too much trouble. You are perfect exactly as you are, and anyone who can't see that is the one with the problem." That night, I stayed with Emma, helping her with dinner and her evening medications, watching her favorite movies and listening to her talk about her summer reading assignment. She was so grateful for the company, so starved for attention and care, that it became clear this wasn't the first time Julie and Brad had left her to fend for herself. As Emma slept, I walked through the house and began to see it with new eyes. The unpaid bills stacked on Julie's desk. The credit card statements showing maxed out limits. The notice from the mortgage company about missed payments. The refrigerator containing little more than condiments and expired takeout containers. My daughter and her husband were drowning financially, but instead of asking for help or making responsible choices, they decided to take a cruise they couldn't afford and abandon their disabled daughter in the process. I sat in Julie's kitchen until dawn, watching the sun rise through unwashed windows, and felt something cold and final settle in my chest. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment. This was a choice that revealed exactly who Julie and Brad really were when it mattered most. They'd shown me their true selves, and now I was going to respond in kind. People think revenge is about rage, but it's not. It's about clarity. It's about seeing a situation with perfect, crystalline understanding and making decisions based on that clarity rather than hope or denial or the desperate wish that people might be better than they actually are. That morning, as I made Emma breakfast and helped her with her medication schedule, I decided that I wasn't just going to remember this betrayal. I was going to answer it. After ensuring Emma was settled with her morning routine, I began a systematic exploration of Julie and Brad's house. What I found was worse than I'd imagined, and what I didn't find was more telling still. In the kitchen, I discovered that the refrigerator contained 3 bottles of beer, half a takeout container of Chinese food that smelled questionable, a jar of pickles, and some condiment packets from various fast food restaurants. The pantry held a few boxes of cereal, some canned soup, and little else that could constitute a proper meal for a teenager who needed consistent nutrition to manage her condition. Emma's medication schedule was taped to the refrigerator, written in my own handwriting from a previous visit. Beside it was a note in Julie's careless scrawl. Emma knows her meds. She can handle it. Back in 2 weeks. J and B. 2 weeks. They expected their disabled daughter to manage her complex medication regimen, prepare her own meals, and handle any emergencies that might arise, all while they sipped cocktails on a cruise ship. I found their passports missing from the drawer where Julie usually kept important documents, confirming that they'd actually left. I found their suitcases gone from the bedroom closet. I found boarding passes and cruise information printed and forgotten on Brad's desk, showing they'd paid nearly $8,000 for this trip. $8,000, while their mortgage was 3 months behind. But what I didn't find was any indication that they'd arranged backup care for Emma. No contact information for a babysitter or home health aide. No emergency numbers beyond my own. No instructions for anyone else who might check on her. They'd simply left, expecting me to drop my own life and take responsibility for theirs. Emma found me in the kitchen, struggling with her walker but determined to be independent. "Grandma, are you mad at Mommy?" The perceptiveness of children, especially children who've learned to read emotional undercurrents for their own survival, never ceased to amaze me. "I'm concerned about you, sweetheart. That's not the same as being mad at Mommy." "She gets tired," Emma said carefully, settling herself at the kitchen table with the deliberate movements of someone who'd learned to manage her body through sheer force of will. She says taking care of me is hard work. Taking care of people you love isn't work, baby. It's privilege." Emma considered this, her serious dark eyes studying my face. "Daddy says I cost too much money. That's why they argue." Each revelation was like a knife twist. I'd known Julie and Brad were struggling, but I hadn't realized they were discussing Emma's care in terms of cost and burden, hadn't known they were making their daughter feel responsible for their financial and marital problems. "Emma, listen to me very carefully. You are not responsible for your parents' problems. You are not too expensive or too much trouble or too anything. You are a gift, and if they can't see that, then the problem is with their vision, not with you. But if I wasn't like this, maybe they would be happy." The casual cruelty of what Julie and Brad had done to this child's self-worth was staggering. They'd poisoned her against herself, made her believe that her disability was the root of every family problem. "Emma, sweetheart, your parents' happiness is not your responsibility. Their marriage is not your responsibility. Their money problems are not your responsibility. The only thing you're responsible for is being exactly who you are, which is wonderful." I spent the morning helping Emma with her physical therapy exercises, something Julie had mentioned they'd been skipping lately because of the cost. I prepared a proper lunch for her, something nutritious and appealing. I sat with her while she worked on her summer reading, marveling at her intelligence and her determination to excel despite every obstacle. And with each passing hour, my resolve hardened like steel. Around noon, I made a phone call to my old friend Patricia Wells, who'd worked in real estate for 30 years before retiring. Patricia had helped me buy my current house after my divorce and had remained a trusted friend and advisor. Martha, how lovely to hear from you. What can I do for you? Patricia, I need some information about selling a house quickly. Hypothetically speaking. Hypothetically? I could hear the smile in her voice. What kind of time frame are we talking about? 2 weeks. Maybe less. That's ambitious, but not impossible, depending on the property and the price point. Are we talking about your house?
No.
My daughter's house. There was a pause. Martha, does your daughter know you're making this call? Not yet, but she will. Patricia had known me long enough to hear the steel in my voice. What's going on? I told her about Emma, about the abandoned responsibility, about the cruise that cost more than Julie and Brad's quarterly mortgage payments. I told her about the bills and the debt and the casual cruelty of leaving a disabled child to fend for herself. My God, Martha, that's unconscionable. It's also actionable. Patricia, if someone had power of attorney for financial decisions, and if the homeowners were demonstrably unable to meet their financial obligations, and if there was a legal dependent whose welfare was at stake. You're talking about a very complex legal situation. I'm talking about protecting my granddaughter from parents who've proven they can't be trusted with that responsibility. Patricia was quiet for a long moment. Martha, this could get very messy very quickly. Are you certain you want to go down this road? I looked through the kitchen doorway to where Emma was reading, her face scrunched in concentration, her pencil moving carefully across her notebook as she took notes in handwriting that was labored but determined. Patricia, they left her alone. They went on a cruise and left their disabled daughter alone for 2 weeks without arranging proper care. They're 3 months behind on their mortgage, but spent $8,000 on a vacation. They've made Emma feel responsible for their marriage problems and their financial struggles. So yes, I'm certain. Then you'll need a lawyer. A good one. Can you recommend someone? I can recommend the best. Margaret Chun. She specializes in elder law and disability advocacy, but she's also brilliant with complex family situations. If anyone can find a legal path through this mess, it's her. I called Margaret Chen's office that afternoon and explained the situation. She agreed to see me the next morning, and her initial assessment was both encouraging and sobering. Mrs. Benjamin, what you're describing could constitute endangerment and neglect. If your granddaughter requires supervised care and medication management, leaving her alone for extended periods could be grounds for intervention. What kind of intervention? In extreme cases, emergency guardianship, especially if there's evidence of ongoing neglect or if the child's welfare is at immediate risk. And the house. If the guardianship is granted, and if the financial situation is as dire as you've described, a guardian might have the authority to make decisions about assets in the ward's best interest, including real estate. How quickly could something like this happen? Margaret studied the documents I'd brought. Photos of the empty refrigerator, copies of the overdue bills, Emma's medication schedule, the cruise information. In cases involving immediate danger to a disabled minor? Very quickly. That evening, I cooked dinner for Emma and myself, using groceries I'd purchased on the way back from the lawyer's office. We ate together at the kitchen table, and Emma chatted about her day, her books, her dreams of maybe going to college someday if she could manage the work. Grandma, when Mommy and Daddy come back, will things be different? Yes, sweetheart. Things will definitely be different. Good different or bad different? I reached across the table and took her hand. That depends on your definition. But I promise you this. You will never again be left alone to take care of yourself. You will never again be made to feel like a burden. And you will never again have to worry about having food in the refrigerator or someone to help you with your medications. How can you promise that? Because I'm your grandmother, and I love you more than anything in this world. And sometimes, when you love someone that much, you have to make hard decisions to protect them. Emma squeezed my hand with her limited strength. I love you too, Grandma. That night, I lay awake in Julie's guest room, listening to the house settle around me and thinking about choices and consequences. Julie and Brad had made their choice when they booked that cruise. They'd made it again when they emptied their bank account for a vacation instead of paying their mortgage. They'd made it a third time when they walked out the door and left Emma alone. Now, it was my turn to make a choice. I thought about the little girl Julie had been, the dreams I'd had for her future, the woman I'd hoped she'd become. I thought about the love I'd poured into raising her, the sacrifices I'd made, the pride I'd felt in her accomplishments. And then I thought about Emma, abandoned and afraid, made to feel responsible for problems she didn't create and couldn't solve. The choice wasn't difficult at all. The next morning, I drove Emma to my house, explaining that she'd be staying with me for a while. She was delighted by the prospect. My house was warm and welcoming, filled with books and comfortable furniture and the smell of fresh baking. More importantly, it was a place where she'd never been made to feel unwelcome or burdensome. "Can I stay in the blue room?" she asked, referring to the guest bedroom I'd decorated with her in mind during her previous visits. "You can stay wherever you're most comfortable, sweetheart. This is your home, too." While Emma settled in and worked on her physical therapy exercises, I made a series of phone calls that would set the wheels of justice in motion. The first call was to Margaretchen, informing her that I was proceeding with the guardianship petition and requesting an emergency hearing based on the evidence of abandonment and neglect. The second call was to Adult Protective Services, reporting that a disabled minor had been left unsupervised for an extended period by parents who'd gone out of state. The third call was to Emma's doctor, requesting a comprehensive evaluation of her current health status and care needs, along with a professional opinion about the appropriateness of leaving her unsupervised. The fourth call was back to Patricia Wells. "I'm ready to move forward with the house sale. Martha, are you absolutely certain about this? Once we start the process, there's no going back." "Patricia, they made their choice when they left Emma alone. Now I'm making mine. What's your timeline?" "They'll be back in 11 days. I want the house sold and the papers signed before their return." "That's ambitious. That's necessary." Patricia had connections throughout the real estate community, and she understood that sometimes desperate situations required creative solutions. Within hours, she'd identified 3 potential buyers who were looking for quick closings and had the financial resources to move fast. The house was actually quite desirable for bedrooms, 2.5 baths, in a good school district with a large backyard. Under normal circumstances, it would have sold quickly at market value. Under our circumstances, it would sell even faster at a discount. "The Hendersons are particularly interested," Patricia told me that afternoon. "Young family, he's a doctor, she's a teacher. They've been looking for exactly this type of house, and they can close in a week if the price is right." "What's the right price?" "Market value is probably around $450. For a quick sale with no contingencies, they'd pay $400. I did the math quickly. After paying off the mortgage and the various liens I'd discovered, there would be roughly $150,000 left over. More than enough to secure Emma's future care and education. "Do it." While Patricia handled the real estate negotiations, Margaretchen was working on the legal framework. The emergency guardianship petition was filed with supporting documentation that painted a clear picture of neglect and abandonment. Emma's doctor, Dr. Sarah Martinez, was appalled when she learned about the situation. "Mrs. Benjamin, Emma requires daily supervision for her medication management alone. Leaving her unsupervised for 2 weeks is not just irresponsible, it's dangerous. Would you be willing to provide that assessment in writing?" "Absolutely. And I'll also note that Emma's recent health improvements are directly related to the consistent care she's been receiving since you took over her supervision." The pieces were falling into place with a precision that felt like destiny. Every phone call, every document, Every professional consultation reinforced the same conclusion. Julie and Brad had abandoned their responsibilities, and intervention was not just appropriate but necessary. But the most important piece was Emma herself. When the court-appointed advocate came to interview her, Emma spoke quietly but clearly about her fears, her parents' arguments about money, the nights she'd gone to bed hungry because there was no food in the house. "Do you feel safe with your grandmother?" the advocate asked. "Yes," Emma said without hesitation. "Grandma makes sure I have my medicine. She cooks food I like. She doesn't get mad when I need help." "Would you like to continue living with your grandmother?" "Yes, please." The advocate's report was damning in its restraint. Professional language couldn't disguise the reality of what Emma had endured or the obvious relief she felt at being properly cared for. 5 days after Julie and Brad had left for their cruise, I received a call from Margaretchen. "The emergency guardianship has been approved. You now have legal authority to make decisions regarding Emma's care, education, and financial support, including decisions about assets that affect her welfare." "Including those decisions, yes." The court recognized that Emma's parents have demonstrated an inability to manage their financial responsibilities in a way that ensures her safety and well-being. "How long does this guardianship last?" "Until Emma turns 18, unless the court determines that her parents have addressed the issues that led to the emergency intervention." Given the evidence of ongoing neglect and abandonment, that seems unlikely. With legal authority established, I called Patricia to move forward with the house sale. The Hendersons were thrilled to expedite their purchase, and their mortgage had already been pre-approved. The inspection was scheduled for the next day, with closing set for the following week. "Martha," Patricia said carefully, "have you thought about what happens when Julie and Brad return? They're going to be furious." "Let them be furious. They forfeited their right to righteous anger when they left Emma alone. They could challenge the sale." "With what legal standing?" "They've been declared unfit guardians for their daughter, they're in default on their mortgage, and they abandoned their property for 2 weeks without making arrangements for its security." "You've really thought this through." "I've had to. Emma deserves protection, and if her parents won't provide it, then I will." That evening, I sat with Emma in my living room, helping her with her summer reading assignment. She was working through To Kill a Mockingbird, struggling with some of the more complex themes, but determined to understand every nuance. "Grandma, Atticus says you never really understand a person until you see things from their point of view. Do you think I should try to understand why Mommy and Daddy left?" The question was so mature, so thoughtful, that it broke my heart. "What do you think, sweetheart?" I think maybe they were scared. Maybe they didn't know how to take care of me properly, and instead of asking for help, they just ran away." Her insight was remarkable, and it made what I was doing both easier and harder. Easier because it confirmed that Emma understood the reality of her situation. Harder because it reminded me of the compassionate, forgiving heart that would be hurt by her parents' abandonment. "You're very wise, Emma, and very kind to think about their feelings even after what they did." Does that make me stupid? It makes you extraordinary. But kindness doesn't mean you have to accept being treated badly. You can understand why someone hurts you without letting them continue to hurt you. Is that what you're doing? Making sure they can't hurt me anymore? That's exactly what I'm doing. Emma nodded seriously. Good. I don't want to be scared anymore. You'll never have to be scared again. I promise. As I tucked Emma into bed that night, I reflected on the strange mathematics of love and justice. Julie and Brad's selfishness had set these events in motion, but it was love, my love for Emma, that was carrying them forward. They'd wanted freedom from responsibility. Soon, they'd have more freedom than they'd ever imagined. Day 6 of Julie and Brad's cruise brought the first signs that they were beginning to realize something was wrong. I was in my kitchen, preparing Emma's lunch and helping her with her morning medications, when my phone rang with Julie's number. I let it go to voicemail. 2 hours later, another call. Then another. By evening, I had 7 missed calls and 3 increasingly frantic voicemails. Mom, something weird is happening with our bank account. Can you call me back? Mom, it's Julie again. I really need to talk to you. Brad's freaking out about some legal papers or something. Mom, what the hell is going on? We got some kind of notice about a court hearing? Call me right now. I didn't call back. Instead, I took Emma out for ice cream, where we sat on a park bench and watched ducks swim in the pond while she told me about her plans for her senior year of high school. I want to take AP English, she said, carefully managing her ice cream cone with the determined precision she brought to everything. Mrs. Rodriguez thinks I'm smart enough. You're definitely smart enough. Do you know what you want to study in college? Maybe social work. I want to help other kids who are, who have challenges. That's a beautiful goal, sweetheart. Grandma, will I be able to go to college? Even with everything? She gestured vaguely at her walker, her speech differences, the physical limitations that had shaped her entire life. Emma, you can do anything you set your mind to, and you'll never have to worry about money for college. I'm going to make sure of that.
How?
Trust me, it's taken care of. That evening, Margaretchen called with an update. The house inspection went smoothly. No major issues, and the buyers are still eager to close. We're on track for Friday. And the guardianship paperwork? All filed and processed. Emma's parents have been served with notice, though obviously they're not in the country to respond. The court has scheduled a formal hearing for 2 weeks from now, after they return. Will they be able to challenge the sale? They can try, but they'll have an uphill battle. The court has already determined that their financial irresponsibility endangered Emma's welfare. The sale of the house to fund her future care and education is entirely consistent with the guardianship mandate. What about their other debts? Those are their responsibility to manage. The proceeds from the house sale will go into a trust for Emma's care and education. Everything else is their problem to solve. The beauty of the plan was its simplicity and its justice. Julie and Brad had abandoned Emma to pursue their own pleasure. Now Emma would be protected and provided for, while they would have to face the consequences of their choices without the safety net they'd taken for granted. Day 8 brought more desperate calls from Julie, each one more panicked than the last. I listened to her voicemails with clinical detachment, noting the progression from confusion to anger to desperation. Mom, I don't know what you think you're doing, but you need to stop it right now. We're coming home early. This is insane. Coming home early. They'd finally realized that their vacation paradise was about to become their real-world nightmare. I called Margaretchen. They're cutting their trip short. How does that affect our timeline? Not at all. The sale closes tomorrow, and the legal guardianship is already in effect. Even if they return tonight, there's nothing they can do to stop what's already happened. And Emma? Emma is safe, legally protected, and financially secure. That's what matters. That afternoon, I took Emma shopping for new clothes and school supplies. She was amazed by the abundance, the freedom to choose what she liked without worrying about cost. Grandma, this is too much, she protested as I added another book to our growing pile. Sweetheart, you've never had too much of anything. You've had too little for too long. Let me spoil you a little bit. But what about money? Mommy always said. Your mommy said a lot of things that weren't true. You don't need to worry about money anymore. You're provided for. At the bookstore, Emma carefully selected novels and study guides for her upcoming senior year. At the clothing store, she chose practical, comfortable clothes that fit properly and made her feel confident. At the electronics store, we bought her a laptop computer for schoolwork and a tablet for reading. Is all this really okay? She asked as we loaded our purchases into my car. Emma, you are my granddaughter, and I love you. Everything I have, everything I am, everything I can provide, it's all yours. You never have to ask permission to have what you need or want what makes you happy. That evening, as Emma explored her new laptop and started setting up her digital library, I sat in my study and reviewed the documents that would finalize the next day. House sale contract, guardianship papers, trust fund establishment forms. Each signature would make Emma's security more permanent and Julie's ability to harm her more limited. My phone rang again, Julie calling for the 15th time that day. This time, I answered.
Hey, suot.
How's your vacation? Mom, what the hell are you doing? Julie's voice was shrill with panic and rage. We got served with legal papers on a cruise ship. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? I imagine it was very unpleasant. Almost as unpleasant as being abandoned by your parents when you need care and supervision. We didn't abandon Emma. We asked you to check on her. You left your disabled daughter alone for 2 weeks without arranging proper care, supervision, or even adequate food. That's the legal definition of abandonment. You're being ridiculous. Emma is fine. Emma is fine because I've been taking care of her properly. She's been living with me since the day after you left. There was a long silence. You can't just take my daughter. I didn't take her. The court awarded me emergency guardianship based on evidence of neglect and endangerment. Emma is now my legal responsibility. We're coming home tomorrow. We're going to fix this. There's nothing to fix, Julie. You made your choices, and now you have to live with the consequences. What consequences? What are you talking about? You'll find out when you get home. I hung up before she could respond. The next morning, Patricia called with the news I'd been waiting for. It's done, Martha. The house sale closed an hour ago. The Hendersons are delighted with their new home, and the check has been deposited into Emma's trust account. How much? After paying off the mortgage and liens, Emma's trust now contains $163,000. More than enough for her college education and ongoing care needs. And Julie and Brad's other debts. Their problem now. The house was their only major asset, and they no longer own it. I felt a profound sense of satisfaction settle over me. Emma was protected, financially and legally. Her future was secure regardless of what her parents did or didn't do. Justice had been served with surgical precision. That afternoon, I received a call from someone I didn't recognize. Mrs. Benjamin? This is Captain Rodriguez with the cruise line. I have Mr. and Mrs. Hartwell here, and they're demanding to speak with you about some kind of emergency. Julie and Brad had apparently convinced the cruise staff that there was a family emergency requiring immediate communication. Captain, there's no emergency. My daughter and her husband abandoned their disabled child and are now facing the legal consequences of that decision. Ma'am, they're saying you've stolen their house. Captain, I'd advise you to check with your legal department before getting involved in what's clearly a domestic dispute with criminal implications. These people left a disabled minor unsupervised for 2 weeks. They're lucky they're not facing charges. I see. I'll have to ask them to work this out on their own. That would be wise. 20 minutes later, my phone rang again. Julie calling from the ship. Mom, they won't help us get off the ship early. They said we have to wait for the scheduled port. That's unfortunate. But you did pay for the full cruise experience. Stop playing games. What did you do to our house? I sold it. The silence on the other end of the line was complete and profound. I could almost hear Julie's world crashing down around her. You can't sell our house. I can, and I did. The court granted me authority to make financial decisions in Emma's best interest after you abandoned her. Selling the house that you couldn't afford to pay for anyway seemed like the responsible choice. You can't do this. We'll sue you. You'll what, Julie? Challenge a court order that was issued because you left your disabled daughter alone for 2 weeks? Good luck explaining that to a judge. Where's Emma? Where is my daughter? Emma is safe, cared for, and happy. She's living with someone who actually wants to take care of her. I want to talk to her. Emma doesn't want to talk to you. She told the court advocate that she feels safer and happier living with me. That's part of the official record now. Another long silence. Then, in a voice small and broken, Mom, we can fix this. When we get back, we can work something out.
No, Julie.
You can't fix this. You can't undo abandoning your daughter. You can't undo the trauma you caused her. And you certainly can't undo the consequences of your choices.
Please. We're sorry.
We made a mistake. You didn't make a mistake. You made a series of deliberate choices that showed exactly who you are and what you value. Emma deserves better than that. She's our daughter.
No, Julie.
Emma is my granddaughter, and she's under my legal guardianship now. You lost the right to call her your daughter when you walked away from her. I hung up the phone and immediately blocked their numbers. Whatever they had to say next, they could say it to a lawyer. That evening, I sat with Emma in our living room now, truly and legally, and watched her work on an art project for her summer enrichment program. She was drawing a picture of our house, complete with the garden where we worked together and the reading nook where we spent our evenings. Grandma, are Mommy and Daddy going to be very angry when they come back? Probably, sweetheart. But that's not your problem anymore. Will they try to make me go back with them? They can try, but it won't work. You're safe with me now, legally and permanently. Good. Emma continued drawing, adding details to the flowers in the garden. I don't want to be scared anymore. I don't want to worry about food or medicine, or whether I'm too much trouble. You'll never have to worry about any of those things again. Grandma, can I ask you something? Anything. Are you happy that you're taking care of me? Or is it just duty? The question revealed so much about the damage Julie and Brad had done to this beautiful child's sense of self-worth. Emma, taking care of you isn't duty. It's joy. It's the best part of my life. You are the best part of my life. Emma smiled, the first completely unguarded, unreserved smile I'd seen from her in years. I love you, Grandma. I love you too, sweetheart. More than you'll ever know. That night, as I prepared for bed, I reflected on what I'd accomplished in just over a week. Emma was safe, financially secure, and legally protected. Julie and Brad were about to discover that actions have consequences, even when you're too selfish to consider what those consequences might be. Tomorrow they would return from their cruise to find their house sold, their daughter gone, and their lives fundamentally altered by their own choices. Justice, I thought, could be both swift and thorough when properly applied. Julie and Brad's flight landed at 6:47 p.m. on a Tuesday evening. I know this because I checked their itinerary, found among the cruise documents in Brad's desk. I wanted to be prepared for what was coming, though I felt no anxiety about the confrontation. Everything I'd done was legal, justified, and in Emma's best interest. Emma and I were in the kitchen when my phone started ringing at 8:23 p.m. I'd unblocked their numbers that morning, curious to hear their first reactions to coming home to a life that no longer existed. Mom? Julie's voice was confused, almost childlike. I think we came to the wrong house. Our key doesn't work. You came to the right house, Julie. But it's not your house anymore. What do you mean it's not our house? Of course it's our house. Check the mailbox. The Hendersons live there now. I could hear muffled conversation in the background, Brad's voice raised in anger and disbelief. Then Julie was back on the phone, her voice climbing toward hysteria. Mom, there are strangers in our house. There are strange cars in our driveway. What did you do? I told you yesterday. I sold the house. You can't sell our house. It wasn't your house anymore, Julie. You were 3 months behind on the mortgage. The bank was already starting foreclosure proceedings. I simply expedited the process and made sure Emma benefited from whatever equity remained. Where are we supposed to live? The The question revealed the stunning depth of their selfishness and short-sightedness. They'd spent $8,000 on a cruise while behind on their mortgage, then expected to return to a life unchanged by their irresponsibility. That's not my problem to solve. You're adults. Figure it out. Mom, please. We need help. We don't have anywhere to go. You should have thought about that before you abandoned Emma. I hung up and immediately blocked their numbers again. Whatever crisis they were experiencing, they'd created it themselves. An hour later, Emma and I were settling down to watch a movie when my doorbell rang. I checked the peephole and saw Julie and Brad standing on my front porch, looking haggard and desperate. Their cruise tans couldn't hide the panic in their faces. Grandma? Emma looked toward the door with obvious fear. Is that them? Yes, sweetheart. But you don't have to see them if you don't want to. I don't want to. Not yet. Then go upstairs to your room. Take your tablet and your headphones. I'll handle this. Emma moved as quickly as her mobility allowed, clearly eager to avoid the confrontation. I waited until I heard her bedroom door close before opening my front door. Julie looked terrible. Her usually perfect appearance was disheveled, her makeup smeared, her vacation clothes wrinkled and inappropriate for the cool evening air. Brad stood beside her with his arms crossed, his face red with anger. Hi, sweetheart, I said pleasantly. How was your cruise? Don't, Julie said, her voice shaking. Don't pretend this is normal. Don't pretend you didn't just destroy our lives. I didn't destroy your lives, Julie. You did that when you decided to abandon Emma. We asked you to check on her. You left your disabled daughter alone for 2 weeks and expected me to clean up your mess. Again. She's 17. She's 17 and disabled and requires supervised care that you were too selfish to provide. Brad stepped forward, his face ugly with rage. You had no right to sell our house. I had every right. The court granted me legal guardianship of Emma after you abandoned her, and part of that guardianship includes making financial decisions in her best interest. That's our daughter. No, she's my granddaughter, and she's under my legal protection now. You lost your parental rights when you proved you couldn't be trusted with them. We want to see Emma, Julie demanded. Emma doesn't want to see you. You can't keep us from our daughter. I'm not keeping you from anything. Emma made her own choice. She told the court advocate that she feels safer living with me. You poisoned her against us. I didn't have to poison her against you. You did that yourselves when you made her feel like a burden. Julie's face crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks. Mom, please. We made a mistake. We can fix this.
No, Julie.
You can't fix this. Some choices can't be undone. We'll fight this in court. With what money? Your house is sold, your credit cards are maxed out, and you're unemployed because you took unauthorized time off for your cruise. Good luck affording a lawyer. Brad grabbed Julie's arm. Come on, babe. We don't need to listen to this. But Julie pulled away from him, staring at me with growing understanding. You planned this. You planned all of this. I responded to what you did. You created this situation when you decided to abandon Emma. Where are we supposed to go? What are we supposed to do? I don't know, Julie. And frankly, I don't care. You made your choices, and now you get to live with them.
Mom, please.
I'm your daughter. Emma is my granddaughter, and she needed someone to protect her from her own parents. I closed the door in their faces and locked it securely. Through the window, I watched them stand on my porch for several minutes, Julie crying and Brad pacing angrily. Finally, they walked back to their rental car. They'd apparently had to rent one at the airport since their own car had probably been repossessed along with everything else they couldn't afford. Upstairs, I found Emma sitting on her bed with her headphones on, but I could tell she'd been listening to every word. Are they gone? She asked quietly. They're gone. Are they coming back? Probably. But it doesn't matter. You're safe here, and no court is going to remove you from a stable, loving home to return you to parents who abandoned you. They seemed really angry. They're angry because they're facing consequences for their actions for the first time in their lives. That's not your fault or your problem. Emma nodded, but I could see the conflict in her eyes. Despite everything Julie and Brad had done to her, she still loved them on some level. That love would make this situation painful for her, but it wouldn't change the legal or practical reality. Grandma, did I do something wrong by choosing to stay with you? Oh, sweetheart, no. You did exactly the right thing. You chose safety over uncertainty, love over obligation, security over chaos. Those were all good choices. But they're my parents. Being a parent is about more than biology, Emma. It's about putting your child's needs before your own wants. It's about providing safety and security and unconditional love. Your grandmother did that for you. Your biological parents didn't. Will I ever see them again? That's up to you, sweetheart. When you're ready, if you ever want to see them, we can arrange supervised visits. But only when you're ready, and only on your terms. Emma considered this carefully. Right now, I just want to feel safe. Then that's what we'll focus on. Being safe and happy and building a good life together. That night, after Emma was asleep, I sat in my study and reviewed the legal documents that had made this transformation possible. Emergency guardianship granted. House sale completed. Trust fund established. Every aspect of Emma's security was now protected by law and backed by financial resources. Julie and Brad could rage and threaten and plead, but they couldn't undo what their own actions had set in motion. They'd wanted freedom from responsibility, and now they had it, along with freedom from the safety net that responsibility had provided. Some lessons, I reflected, can only be learned through experience. And some experiences change everything that comes after. Over the next few days, Julie and Brad made several more attempts to contact me, each more desperate than the last. They showed up at my door twice more, but I simply didn't answer. They called from different numbers, trying to get around my blocks. They even tried to contact Emma's school, demanding information about her enrollment and living situation. The school's response was swift and clear. Emma's legal guardian had already handled her enrollment, and her parents had no right to information without a court order. Margaretchen called on Thursday with an update that didn't surprise me, but still brought satisfaction. Julie and Brad have hired a lawyer, she said. Someone from a discount legal service. They're challenging the guardianship and demanding the return of the house sale proceeds. What are their chances? Minimal to non-existent. The guardianship was granted based on documented abandonment and neglect. The house sale was necessary to prevent foreclosure and provide for Emma's care. No court is going to overturn those decisions. What about their demand for visitation? That's more complex. They are Emma's biological parents, so they may be granted supervised visitation if Emma consents. But given her stated preference to remain with you, even that's not guaranteed. And if Emma doesn't want to see them, then she doesn't have to. At 17, her wishes carry significant weight with the court. I discussed the situation with Emma that evening over dinner. Your parents have asked the court for permission to see you. You don't have to agree to that, but I want you to know it's an option if you ever want it. Emma was quiet for a long moment, carefully cutting her chicken into manageable pieces. What would happen if I said yes? The visits would be supervised, probably here at the house or at a neutral location. You could end them at any time if you felt uncomfortable. And if I said no, then you wouldn't see them until you changed your mind, if you ever do. What do you think I should do? I think you should do whatever feels right for you, sweetheart. There's no wrong answer here. Emma considered this seriously. I think maybe I'm not ready yet. Maybe someday, but not now. Is that okay? That's perfectly okay. You get to decide when you're ready, or if you're ever ready. Will they be angry?
Probably.
But their anger is their problem to manage, not yours to fix. Emma nodded with the wisdom of someone who'd learned early that other people's emotions weren't her responsibility. Then I think I want to wait. Margaret filed Emma's response with the court, and the request for visitation was denied pending Emma's future consent. Julie and Brad's lawyer also filed a motion challenging the house sale, but Margaret was confident it would be dismissed. The sale was legally authorized and financially necessary, she explained. The court isn't going to void a legitimate transaction just because the original homeowners are unhappy with the consequences of their actions. Meanwhile, Emma and I were building a life together that felt both natural and joyful. She was thriving in her summer programs, making friends with other students who appreciated her intelligence and humor rather than seeing only her disabilities. Her physical therapy was going well, and her new doctor was amazed at the improvement in her overall health since she'd been receiving consistent care. Whatever you're doing, Dr. Martinez told me during Emma's monthly checkup, keep doing it. Emma's weight is stable, her medication levels are perfect, and her mood has improved dramatically. She's getting the care and attention she needs, I said simply. It shows. She's a different child than she was 6 months ago. Emma beamed at the praise, and I felt a fierce pride in what we'd accomplished together. This was what family was supposed to look like: mutual care, unconditional love, and the security that comes from knowing you're valued exactly as you are. 2 weeks after their return from the cruise, Julie and Brad's financial situation had deteriorated further. I learned this through Patricia, who heard through the real estate community that they were living in a cheap motel and struggling to find work. Julie apparently lost her job for taking unauthorized vacation time, Patricia reported, and Brad was laid off right before they left, which explains why they could afford the cruise in the first place. He got a severance package. So, they spent his entire severance on a vacation instead of paying their bills. Exactly. And now they're facing bankruptcy, homelessness, and legal bills they can't afford. I felt no sympathy for their plight. They'd created this situation through a series of selfish, irresponsible choices. Now they were experiencing the natural consequences of those choices without the safety net they'd taken for granted. Emma asked about them occasionally, usually when she was feeling particularly secure and happy. Do you think Mommy and Daddy miss me? I think they probably do, sweetheart. But missing someone isn't the same as being willing to take proper care of them. Do you think they've learned anything? I think they've learned that actions have consequences. Whether they've learned to make better choices, that remains to be seen. If they did learn, if they became better people, would you ever let them back into my life? It was a fair question, and one that deserved an honest answer. Emma, if your parents could prove that they genuinely changed, that they understood how much they hurt you, and that they were committed to putting your needs first, then yes, I would consider allowing them back into your life. But that would be a very long process, and it would be entirely dependent on your comfort level. How would they prove they'd changed? By getting stable jobs and housing, by paying their debts, by completing parenting classes, by demonstrating over time that they could be responsible for their own lives before asking to be responsible for yours again. That sounds hard. It should be hard. They broke something precious when they abandoned you. Fixing that kind of damage takes time and effort and genuine commitment to change. Emma nodded thoughtfully. I hope they do get better. Not because I want to live with them again, but because I don't like thinking about people being unhappy forever. Her compassion, even for people who'd hurt her deeply, was remarkable. It also reinforced my conviction that I'd made the right choice in protecting her from further harm. 3 weeks after the cruise incident, I received a call from an unexpected source. Brad's mother, a woman I'd met only briefly at Julie and Brad's wedding. Mrs. Benjamin? This is Carol Hartwell, Brad's mother. I hope you don't mind me calling. Not at all, Mrs. Hartwell. What can I do for you? I just learned about what happened with Emma, and I wanted you to know that I think you did the right thing. This surprised me. Thank you for saying that. I've been worried about Emma for months. When I visited at Christmas, I could see that she wasn't getting proper care. Julie seemed overwhelmed, and well, Brad has never been good with responsibility. It's kind of you to call. Mrs. Benjamin, I know my son and your daughter are angry with you right now, but I want you to know that you have my complete support. Emma deserves better than what she was getting. Emma is doing very well now. She's happy and healthy and looking forward to her senior year. I'm so glad to hear that. Would it be possible? Could I visit her sometime? I know the situation is complicated, but Emma is my granddaughter too, and I love her. I considered the request carefully. Carol Hartwell had always been kind to Emma, and she'd shown genuine concern for her welfare. I think Emma would like that. Let me ask her and get back to you. When I mentioned Carol's call to Emma, her face lit up with genuine joy. Grandma Carol wants to visit? Really?
She does.
She said she's been worried about you and wants to make sure you're okay. I'd like to see her. She always remembered my birthday, and she never made me feel like I was too much trouble. I called Carol back and arranged a visit for the following weekend. It was a small step toward rebuilding Emma's connections with family members who genuinely cared about her, while maintaining the boundaries that protected her from those who didn't. As I hung up the phone, I reflected on how different this conversation was from the ones I'd had with Julie and Brad. Carol's concern was genuine, focused entirely on Emma's well-being rather than her own convenience or comfort. It reminded me that family is about more than blood. It's about who shows up when it matters most. Emma now had a family that showed up for her every day, in every way that counted. And that, I thought, was worth any price I'd had to pay to provide it. Emma, you don't need to thank me for loving you. That was never a choice. It was just a fact. But keeping me was a choice. Protecting me was a choice. Fighting for me was a choice. And I want you to know that every choice you made, I would make the same one. I hope you never have to make choices like that, sweetheart. Maybe not exactly like that. But if I ever have children, and if they ever need someone to fight for them the way you fought for me, I hope I'll be brave enough to do it. As we pulled into our driveway, Emma's driveway too, now and always, I thought about the strange mathematics of love and loss. Julie and Brad had lost their daughter through their own selfishness, but that loss had become Emma's and my gain. Their failure had created the opportunity for a different kind of family, one built on choice rather than obligation, on demonstrated love rather than biological connection. Some stories end with reconciliation and forgiveness. This story ended with something better, the recognition that family is what you build, not what you're born into, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to accept less than what someone deserves. Emma was safe, successful, and surrounded by people who valued her. Julie and Brad were facing the consequences of their choices, learning too late what they'd lost through their own actions. Justice, I thought, could be both merciful and final. Emma's first year of college passed in a blur of phone calls, care packages, and visits home that felt like celebrations of independence rather than escapes from hardship. She thrived in the dormitory environment, made lasting friendships with fellow students who appreciated her wisdom and humor, and excelled academically in ways that surprised even her professors. "Your granddaughter is remarkable," her academic advisor told me during Parents' Weekend. "She has this ability to connect with other students who are struggling, to help them find resources and support systems. She's going to make an exceptional social worker." Emma had found her calling in helping others navigate the challenges she'd overcome herself. Her experiences with abandonment and disability had given her insights that couldn't be taught in textbooks, and she used those insights to help fellow students who were facing their own difficulties. During her sophomore year, Emma called me with news that was both expected and momentous. "Grandma, I got an internship with the State Disability Advocacy Office. They want me to work on a project developing support systems for teenagers aging out of the foster care system. That sounds perfect for you, sweetheart. The really exciting part is that they've offered me a scholarship for my junior and senior years, plus a guaranteed job after graduation if I maintain my grades. Emma, that's wonderful. You're building exactly the kind of career that will let you help other kids who need what you needed. That's the idea. I want to make sure no other child ever feels abandoned or burdensome the way I did. Her purpose was clear, her path was set, and her future was secure in ways that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with the strength of character she developed through adversity. It was during Emma's junior year that I received another letter from Julie. This one was different from the first, less desperate, more thoughtful, written by someone who'd had time to truly examine her choices and their consequences.
Mom,
It's been 3 years since the cruise, and I'm finally ready to write you again. I've been in therapy consistently, I've completed a parenting course, and I've been working steadily for over a year now. More importantly, I've been learning to live with the weight of what I did to Emma. I know that Emma is thriving in college. I follow her academic achievements through the university's public records, and I've seen the articles about her advocacy work. She's become the kind of person I always hoped she would be, but she did it without any help from me. I'm not writing to ask for anything. I'm not asking to see Emma or to be part of her life. I understand that I forfeited those rights when I abandoned her. I'm writing because I want you to know that I've finally learned to live with the consequences of my choices without blaming anyone else for them. Brad and I are both doing better apart than we ever did together. He's in construction now, working steady hours and paying his bills. I'm managing a small office and taking night classes to finish my degree. We're both learning to be responsible for our own lives without expecting other people to clean up our messes. I think about Emma every day. I think about the mother I should have been and the childhood I should have given her. I can't change any of that, but I can make sure I never hurt anyone that way again. Thank you for giving Emma the life she deserved. Thank you for being strong enough to do what I was too weak to do. And thank you for protecting her from the people who would have continued to hurt her. I hope she's happy.
I hope she knows how extraordinary she is.
And I hope someday she'll understand that giving her up was the most loving thing I've ever done, even though I didn't realize it at the time. Julie. This letter felt different from the first. Less self-pitying, more accepting of responsibility. There was a maturity in Julie's words that suggested genuine growth rather than temporary remorse. I showed the letter to Emma during one of her visits home, curious about her reaction to this more thoughtful version of her mother's regret. She sounds calmer, Emma said after reading it carefully. Less desperate to fix things and more focused on learning from them. How does that make you feel? Honestly, it makes me hopeful for her. Not hopeful that we'll have a relationship, but hopeful that she's becoming a better person. Do you ever think about reaching out to her? Emma considered this seriously. Sometimes. But I think I'd want to wait until I'm more established in my own life. Maybe after I graduate and start my career. Maybe when I'm confident enough in who I am that contact with her couldn't shake that foundation. That's very wise. I learned from the best, Emma said with a smile. You taught me that love doesn't mean accepting treatment that hurts you. You can hope for someone's growth and healing without putting yourself at risk of being hurt by them again. And if she continues to grow, if she proves over time that she's genuinely changed, then maybe someday we could have a careful, limited relationship. But it would have to be on my terms, and it would have to be consistent with the life I've built without her. I was proud of Emma's thoughtfulness, her ability to consider possibilities without rushing toward forgiveness or closing the door permanently on future healing. During Emma's senior year, I began planning for a different kind of transition. At 61, I was still healthy and active, but I wanted to make sure Emma's future was completely secure regardless of what happened to me. I met with my lawyer to update my will and establish additional protections for Emma's inheritance. I also began exploring options for gradually transferring some of my assets to her while I was still alive to see her benefit from them. Mrs. Benjamin, my financial advisor, said during one of our planning sessions, "You've done an exceptional job securing Emma's future. Between her trust fund, her scholarship, and the inheritance you're planning, she'll be financially independent for life. That's the goal. I want to make sure she never has to depend on anyone who might let her down." What about your own retirement? I have more than enough for my needs. Emma's security is more important than any luxury I might want. The truth was that watching Emma thrive had become the greatest luxury I could imagine. Her success, her happiness, her growing confidence and independence, these were worth more than any material comfort. As Emma's graduation approached, I reflected on the 4 years that had passed since that awful phone call about the cruise. Julie and Brad's moment of selfishness had set in motion a chain of events that had transformed all our lives in ways they never could have anticipated. They'd lost their daughter, their home, their marriage, and their comfortable assumption that other people would always clean up their messes. But they'd also, apparently, found opportunities for growth and self-reflection that might not have come any other way. Emma had lost the illusion of unconditional parental love, but she'd gained real security, genuine family bonds, and the strength that comes from overcoming abandonment. She'd also found her calling in helping others navigate similar challenges. And I had gained a granddaughter who'd become the center of my world, a relationship built on choice and mutual care rather than obligation and dependency. Some endings are really beginnings in disguise, and some losses create space for better things to grow. Emma graduated summa cum laude with a degree in social work and a minor in disability studies. The state advocacy office immediately hired her as a full-time counselor specializing in family crisis intervention. Her first assignment was developing programs to prevent family abandonment of disabled children, work that felt like both professional achievement and personal healing. "Grandma," she said on the night before she started her new job, "I keep thinking about how different everything could have been if Mommy and Daddy had made different choices." "How so?" "If they'd been better parents, if they'd gotten help instead of running away, if they'd put my needs first, I might have stayed with them. I might never have lived with you. I might never have learned what real family feels like." "Do you think that would have been better or worse?" Emma considered this carefully. "I think it would have been different. Maybe easier in some ways, but definitely less profound. I wouldn't have learned how strong I am. I wouldn't have learned how to recognize real love versus obligation. I wouldn't have learned that family is something you choose and build, not something you're stuck with. And you wouldn't have learned that you can survive abandonment and come out stronger on the other side."
Exactly.
So, in a weird way, I'm grateful for what happened. Not for the pain of it, but for everything that came after. That's a remarkable perspective, sweetheart. I learned it from watching you. You could have been bitter about what Julie and Brad did. You could have seen taking care of me as a burden or a sacrifice. Instead, you saw it as an opportunity to build something better than what existed before. Taking care of you was never a burden, Emma. It was a privilege. I know. And that's what made all the difference. As Emma settled into her career and her independent adult life, I felt a deep satisfaction that had nothing to do with revenge or justice and everything to do with love transformed into action. The scared, abandoned child I'd rescued 4 years ago had become a confident, compassionate woman who was using her experiences to help others. Julie and Brad had wanted freedom from responsibility. In the end, they'd gotten exactly what they'd asked for. And learned that freedom without purpose is just another kind of prison. Emma and I had built something better from the wreckage of their failure. We'd created a family based on choice, commitment, and unconditional love. We'd proven that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to accept less than what someone deserves. The circle was complete, but it wasn't really an ending. It was a foundation for whatever came next. 5 years after Emma's college graduation, I received a phone call that brought the past full circle in ways I never could have anticipated. Grandma? Emma's voice carried excitement mixed with nervousness. I have news. Good news, I hope. The best news. Marcus proposed. I felt my heart leap with joy. Marcus had been a constant presence in Emma's life since their sophomore year of college, and he'd proven himself to be exactly the kind of man Emma deserved. Kind, intelligent, supportive, and completely devoted to her happiness. Oh, sweetheart. That's wonderful. When did this happen? Last night. He planned this whole elaborate proposal around a case we'd been working on together. He arranged for the family we helped to be there when he asked, so the kids could witness what he called another kind of happy ending. Marcus worked for the same state advocacy office as Emma, specializing in legal protections for vulnerable adults. They made a formidable team both professionally and personally, fighting for people who needed champions and building a life together based on shared values and mutual respect. Have you set a date? Next spring. We want to have the ceremony here in our garden, if that's okay with you. Our garden. Even after living independently for several years, Emma still thought of my house as her primary home. Of course it's okay. It's perfect. Grandma, there's something else I want to ask you. What's that, sweetheart? Would you walk me down the aisle? I know it's not traditional, but you're the person who gave me away to the world, and I'd like you to be the one who gives me to Marcus. The honor of the request took my breath away. Emma, I would be absolutely delighted to walk you down the aisle. And Grandma, I've been thinking about wedding invitations, about who we want there to celebrate with us. Oh, I think I want to invite my mother. The statement hung in the air between us, heavy with implications and possibilities I'd never fully considered. Tell me about that decision, I said carefully. She's been consistently stable for almost 6 years now. She's kept the same job, paid her bills, completed therapy. She sends me a card every birthday and Christmas, but she's never pushed for contact or made demands. She's proven that she can respect boundaries. And you want her at your wedding? I want her to see who I became. I want her to understand that I didn't just survive what she did to me. I thrived despite it. And I want to give her the chance to share in my happiness without giving her any power over it. Emma's wisdom continued to amaze me. She'd learned to separate forgiveness from foolishness, healing from naivety. What about your father? Emma was quiet for a moment. I'm not ready for that yet. From what I hear through Grandma Carol, he's doing better too, but we never had the kind of bond that might be worth rebuilding. With Mom, there's something there that might be worth exploring carefully. And if inviting her turns out to be a mistake, then I'll handle it the way you taught me to handle difficult situations, with clear boundaries, realistic expectations, and the confidence that I can protect myself if necessary. I was proud of Emma's thoughtful approach to this delicate situation. She wasn't rushing toward reconciliation out of sentiment or obligation, but considering it from a position of strength and security. Whatever you decide, sweetheart, I'll support you completely. I know you will. That's what gives me the courage to take the risk. Emma sent Julie an invitation with a carefully worded note explaining that this was an opportunity for limited contact, not a return to a mother-daughter relationship. Julie's response was gracious and grateful, accepting the invitation while explicitly acknowledging the boundaries Emma had set. The wedding was everything Emma had dreamed of, intimate, meaningful, and filled with people who genuinely loved and supported her. Julie attended quietly, staying in the background and making no demands for attention or special recognition. She cried during the ceremony, but they seemed to be tears of joy mixed with regret rather than self-pity. After the reception, as guests were departing and Emma and Marcus were preparing to leave for their honeymoon, Julie approached me with hesitant respect. Mrs. Benjamin, could I speak with you for just a moment? I nodded, curious about what she might have to say after witnessing the life Emma had built. "I wanted to thank you," Julie said quietly, "for everything you did for Emma and for letting me be here today to see the woman she's become. Emma made the decision to invite you. I just supported her choice. She's extraordinary. Her work, her marriage, her confidence. She's everything I hoped she would become, but she became it without any help from me. She became it because of her own strength and character." Julie nodded, tears in her eyes. "I know I can never undo what I did to her. I know I can never be the mother I should have been. But seeing her today, seeing how happy and secure she is, it helps me believe that maybe the worst thing I ever did led to the best possible outcome for her. Emma chose to invite you because she's learned that healing doesn't require holding on to anger. But she's also learned that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or pretending that harmful actions didn't have consequences. I understand, and I'm grateful for whatever contact she's willing to have, even if it's limited. Julie, if you want to be part of Emma's life going forward, even in a small way, you'll need to continue proving that you've genuinely changed. Consistency over time, respect for boundaries, and putting her needs before your own comfort. I understand. I won't let her down again. See that you don't. She's built a life she deserves, surrounded by people who value her. She doesn't need anything from you, but she might choose to include you if you prove you've earned that privilege. Julie nodded gratefully and departed quietly, understanding that she'd been given a gift she didn't deserve but might be able to earn through sustained good choices. 2 years after the wedding, Emma called with news that filled my heart with joy and anticipation.
Grandma, I'm pregnant.
Oh, sweetheart. That's wonderful news. We just had the first ultrasound. Everything looks perfect, and the baby is due in early fall. How are you feeling? Excited, nervous, grateful, all of it. But mostly I'm thinking about what kind of parent I want to be. You're going to be an amazing mother, Emma. I hope so. I keep thinking about everything I learned from you about what real parenting looks like. About putting your child's needs first, about creating security and stability, about showing love through actions rather than just words. Those are exactly the right things to think about. Grandma, will you help me with the baby? I mean, I know you're getting older, and I don't want to burden you, but Emma, helping you raise your child would be the greatest joy of my life. Of course, I'll help. Really? Sweetheart, I've been waiting for this opportunity since the day you got married. I want to be the kind of grandmother to your baby that I got to be to you, present, involved, and completely devoted. The baby is so lucky to have you. The baby is lucky to have you as a mother. Everything else is just a bonus. 9 months later, I held my great-granddaughter for the first time, a perfect, healthy baby girl with Emma's intelligent eyes and Marcus's gentle temperament. They named her Grace, after the grace that had carried our family through its darkest moments and into its brightest future. As I rocked Grace to sleep in the nursery Emma and Marcus had prepared in their home, a house just 3 blocks from mine, I reflected on the journey that had brought us to this moment. 12 years ago, Julie and Brad had made a choice that seemed designed to prioritize their own pleasure over their daughter's welfare. That choice had set in motion a series of events that ultimately gave Emma the family she deserved, the security she needed, and the foundation for building her own loving relationships. Now Emma was creating the next generation of our chosen family, raising a child with the same values of unconditional love, unwavering support, and fierce protection that had saved her from abandonment and neglect. The legacy Julie and Brad had inadvertently created wasn't one of abandonment and selfishness, but one of resilience, love, and the power of family bonds that transcend biology. Grace would grow up knowing she was wanted, valued, and protected. She would learn about responsibility and care from parents who understood the cost of both. She would never question whether she was too much trouble or too expensive or too difficult to love. Most importantly, she would understand that family is what you build through choice and commitment, not what you're given through accident of birth. As I tucked Grace into her crib and watched her settle into peaceful sleep, I thought about Julie and Brad, now leading separate lives marked by hard-won stability and delayed maturity. They'd lost their chance to raise Emma, but perhaps they'd learned lessons that would prevent them from causing similar harm to others. Emma had chosen to maintain limited contact with Julie, birthday cards, occasional emails, brief visits on major holidays. The relationship was cordial but cautious, built on Julie's demonstrated change rather than biological obligation. It was enough. It was healing without being naive, forgiveness without being foolish. Grandma? Emma appeared in the nursery doorway, her voice soft to avoid waking the baby. Is she settled? She's perfect, I whispered back. Just like her mother was at this age. Thank you for being here for this. For all of it. Emma, being part of your life, watching you become the woman you are, seeing you find love with Marcus, witnessing you become a mother, it's been the greatest privilege of my life. Even though it started with such an awful situation, especially because it started with such an awful situation. It taught us both what really matters and what's worth fighting for. As we walked downstairs together, leaving Grace to her dreams, Emma asked the question I'd been waiting for her to ask for years. Grandma, do you ever regret what you did? Taking my parents' house, breaking up their marriage, changing all our lives so dramatically. I considered the question seriously, as it deserved. Emma, I regret that it was necessary. I regret that your parents made choices that forced me to take such drastic action. But I don't regret protecting you from people who'd proven they couldn't be trusted with your welfare. Even though it hurt them, they hurt themselves, sweetheart. They made a series of selfish, irresponsible choices, and those choices had natural consequences. I simply made sure those consequences couldn't continue to harm you. Do you think they learned from it? I think they learned that actions have consequences, and that's a lesson everyone needs to understand eventually. Whether they learn to make better choices, that remains to be seen. Emma nodded thoughtfully. I'm glad you fought for me, Grandma. I'm glad you refused to let me think I wasn't worth fighting for. You were always worth fighting for. You just needed someone who could see that clearly. As Emma and Marcus settled into parenthood, and I into my new role as great-grandmother, I felt a profound sense of completion. The scared, abandoned child I'd rescued 13 years ago had become a confident woman raising her own child with love, wisdom, and unshakable security. Julie and Brad's moment of selfishness had accidentally created something beautiful, a family bound not by obligation but by choice, not by biological accident but by demonstrated love, not by convenience but by commitment. Some stories end with forgiveness and reconciliation. Others end with justice and consequences. This story ended with something better, the recognition that love, when properly applied, can transform even the worst situations into opportunities for growth, healing, and hope. Grace would grow up knowing she was chosen, valued, and protected by people who understood the precious responsibility of caring for another human being. She would learn that family is what you build, not what you're given, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to accept less than what someone deserves. The cycle was complete, but it wasn't an ending. It was a foundation for whatever came next, built on the understanding that love, when it's real, always finds a way to protect what matters most. People think revenge is about rage, but they're wrong. The best revenge is building something so beautiful, so strong, so filled with genuine love that it makes the original injury irrelevant. Emma had a life worth living, a family worth cherishing, and a future worth anticipating. Julie and Brad's abandonment had accidentally given her all of that by forcing her into the arms of someone who knew how to love properly. In the end, that was justice enough. If Martha's fierce protection of Emma moved you, if her calculated justice gave you chills, then you understand what we're about here. Family isn't just blood, it's who shows up when everything falls apart. It's who fights for you when you can't fight for yourself. Hit that subscribe button and join our community of survivors, fighters, and people who refuse to let the ones they love be treated as disposable. Share your own story of standing up for family in the comments below. Remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to let someone settle for less than they deserve. Until next time, keep protecting what matters most.